the vessel was flagged by under the rules of the Marshall Islands, I guess, which is the Marshall Islands, and they have different standards than we have. Do you believe that we should have all of these vessels under United States safety regulations and flagged by United States standards?
Sir, I would submit to you there's an effect we need to achieve, and it is this. Right now, for those vessels to operate in our waters, they have to be compliant with international standards that have been promulgated through the International Maritime Organization. To do that, the Coast Guard does a verification of whether or not the country of registry has met those international standards and issues what's called a certificate of compliance, where we would normally, for a U.S. flagship, issue a certificate of inspection. I would submit that we need to take a look at the protocol that we use for cruise ships that are foreign flagged that carries a large number of U.S. passengers, and we do something called a control verification exam, which actually involves a physical inspection. There are two ways going forward. You can have the discussion whether they should be U.S. flagged or not, but they certainly should be held to a higher standard and inspected. And I would say that the current regime we use to ensure the safety of cruise ships is a good model to use for offshore drilling units.
The Marshall Islands was the standards, and I think they had somebody perform the safety standards that was from that area, and it was like a 4 to 8 hour examination. If I'm correct, if I'm wrong, correct my premise. But is that accurate? It was.
I'm not sure what you're referring to, sir, but what we would do with a cruise ship, there would be an extensive inspection while that ship was being built in the shipyard. There would be an initial exam when they entered into service, and there would be quarterly inspections. I've taken a part in those myself as a field commander. I think that type of regime should be applied to foreign flag vessels operating in our water, sir.
You mentioned, I think in response to Mr. Young's questions, and it might have been Mr. Garcia, I'm not sure, but somebody that the government should not be the one that determines these standards. Is that what I understood? What was it? Mr. Garcia, it was something Mr. Young asked about, and he didn't think the government should be the party. There should be a third party doing this I think it was the safety inspections.
Yep.
And
I think what he's referring to was certification of drilling systems. Right now, let's take a blowout preventer. That is built by industry to certain standards that are issued by the American Petroleum Institute, and that constitutes the level of due diligence that's applied to the construction and operation. I think what we're saying is, as with vessel inspection, an independent third party such as the American Bureau of Shipping or other classification societies should be the ones that come in and verify, especially blowout preventers, kill and choke lines, and the blue and yellow pods on these operations.
All right, that's correct. Thank you for refreshing my recollection. But let me ask you this: do you think that are there systems that make sure that there's not influences there that would make those standards more to the industry's liking rather than maybe the public's needs? And that, government it's a bad rap, and government can and have proper regulations and proper oversight. That's one of the issues in this Congress, is about regulation, and is regulation hurting the government or hurting business? And yet there's a lot of regulations here that need to be adopted and implemented. And these might cost, I don't know what, there's something about the RAINS Act, $100 million, and whether or not this would be determined as $100 million. I imagine it would. And if you couldn't get the Senate to go along with what the House had in some regulation on standards, we'd have no standards.
Yes, sir, if I could make a comment. There's an issue that was raised in the Commission report. It hasn't been alluded to in this hearing yet today, but it probably needs to be discussed. If you look at the rest of the world and how they manage oil exploration off their coast, they do it through something called a safety case regime, where there's a risk assessment conducted, and as part of the regulatory process, the companies have to produce a plan on how they will mitigate risk and manage the overall process through a safety management system. That is going to be the subject, I think, of some pretty detailed discussion. My personal view is you probably need a hybrid system where there are some command and control issues related to inspection of drilling systems, and then a way to assess risk and have them present a plan on how they would manage risk. But the commissioners may want to comment on that.
In fact, that is exactly what we've recommended, that there be a hybrid system where we need to obviously change and strengthen the regulations.
Let me stop you for 1 minute, because I got 12 seconds where a red light goes off, and then you can go on. If we had passed this RAINS Act, and you had regulations from the government that couldn't go into effect unless the House and Senate approved them, you could have a disastrous oil spill because we don't have regulations. And how much would that cost business in the Gulf, fisheries, tourism, et cetera, would the lack of the ability to promulgate and enforce rules and regulations cost business a lot of money?
Yes, sir. It would cost business a lot of money.
Great answer.
If I could just answer one of your other points, we did recommend a hybrid system. The regulations that are governing the oversight of the offshore industry by the Department of the Interior need to be strengthened. They need to be brought into the 21st century, frankly. We should be setting the standard in this country, but we also suggested that we need to follow the lead of the United Kingdom and Norway, who had their own catastrophic events, and following those events, they instituted a system that is called a safety case approach. And what that requires is that the operator and the driller must demonstrate on a site-specific basis that they have put into place all of the adequate safeguards and measures necessary to properly drill in a particular place. And then third, we recommended that the industry, it's in the industry's interest that it should set up its own watchdog that would be of and by and for the industry to provide oversight, similar to what the nuclear industry has done and which has been very effective.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you.
Thank you. We're going to